Sergeant Britton Johnson knelt on the cold metallic floor, his wrists bound tightly in alien restraints that hissed and glowed faintly with energy. Around him, towering figures clad in black armor loomed like sentinels, their glowing visors casting an eerie light in the dim chamber. The stench of burnt ozone lingered in the air, a harsh reminder of Earth's fallen defenses. Johnson kept his head low, his mind racing despite the ache in his bruised ribs. The Galactic Empire's flagship pulsed with life, its alien technology humming, mocking him with its flawless superiority. Is this the best Earth has to offer? The alien commander, Margoth, strode forward, his four eyes scanning Johnson with both disdain and amusement. Margotha's tall, sinewy frame exuded menace, his elongated fingers curling around a crystalline staff that radiated authority. A single soldier, broken, defeated. How poetic! He leaned closer, his sharp, serrated teeth bared in a grin. Your kind fought valiantly, I'll admit. Primitive bravery. But bravery without strength is just desperation. Johnson clenched his fists, the restraints digging into his skin. He said nothing. His silence only seemed to entertain Margoth further, who straightened and turned to his gathered subordinates. Earth's champions, he continued mockingly, eliciting low chuckles from the other aliens. Weak, unremarkable, and destined for extinction. Their history will fade into the void like dust swept from the stars. The laughter grated on Johnson's nerves, but he forced himself to remain calm. He had been captured during a disastrous ambush, one that left most of his squad either dead or scattered. It was luck, or perhaps cruel fate, that he had survived, only to become a trophy for the Empire's propaganda. His failure weighed heavily on him, but anger simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. Take him to the holding cells, Margoth ordered, his tone dismissive. We'll parade him before the Galactic Council as proof of our conquest. Perhaps we'll even gift him to our allies as a pet. 2 guards grabbed Johnson by the arms and hauled him to his feet. Their movements were efficient, mechanical, as if handling cargo instead of a human being. As they dragged him toward the exit, Johnson caught snippets of a conversation between 2 officers near the command console. That ship on Saktar, one of them muttered, their guttural voice barely audible. Still radiating anomalies. We've lost 3 patrols near it. Cursed. The other replied with a dismissive grunt. Nothing but a ruin. Let it rot. Johnson's ears perked up despite the ringing pain in his head. Saktar. He filed the information away, unsure of its relevance, but unwilling to ignore it. The Empire's arrogance had proven to be its weakness before, and anything they deemed irrelevant was worth investigating. The guard shoved him into a small, dimly lit cell, the door sealing shut with a low hiss. Left alone with nothing but his thoughts, Johnson slumped against the cold wall. He closed his eyes, replaying the scene of Earth's defeat in his mind. Flashes of fire, screams, and the overwhelming force of the Empire's advanced weaponry. Yet through the despair, a faint ember of resolve burned within him. This wasn't over. Not yet. Hours passed, perhaps days. Time blurred in the featureless cell, and Johnson's body ached from the strain of confinement. Then, a tremor shook the ship, distant but unmistakable. Alarms blared, and shouts echoed through the corridors. Johnson rose to his feet, straining to make sense of the chaos outside. Moments later, the cell door slid open with a sharp hiss, revealing a frantic human resistance fighter in scavenged armor. "Sergeant Johnson," the man hissed, motioning for him to follow. "We've got a team here to extract you. Move!" Johnson didn't need to be told twice. He followed the man through a maze of hallways, the sounds of battle growing louder with each step. The rescue team had created a diversion, their hit-and-run tactics wreaking havoc on the Empire's forces. Johnson admired their bravery but knew it wouldn't last. They were outgunned, and the Empire's reinforcements would arrive soon. The group reached an escape pod bay, where a battered ship awaited them. Before boarding, Johnson glanced at a nearby console displaying star charts and mission logs. One file caught his eye, Saktar, the cursed ship. His instincts screamed that this was no ordinary derelict. If the Empire feared it, there was a reason. "What are you doing?" the resistance fighter urged, panic in his voice. Johnson turned to him, his jaw set. "I'm not going back to Earth empty-handed. There's something on Saktar the Empire doesn't want us to find." "That's suicide," the man protested. "We came to get you out, not." "You'll never stop the Empire without taking risks," Johnson interrupted, his voice firm. "Get the others out of here. I'll handle this." Before the man could argue further, Johnson slipped into another pod and input the coordinates for Saktar. The engines roared to life, propelling him into the void. As the stars blurred past, he felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. He was alone, venturing into the unknown, but for the first time in days, he felt like he was in control. The journey was uneventful, the vast emptiness of space stretching endlessly around him. When the moon of Saktar came into view, Johnson's breath caught. It was a barren, icy wasteland, its surface pockmarked with craters and jagged cliffs. But there, nestled within a deep crevasse, was a massive structure partially buried beneath layers of ice. The derelict ship. Johnson landed the pod and stepped onto the moon's surface, the crunch of ice beneath his boots the only sound in the desolate landscape. He approached the ship cautiously, its dark silhouette looming like a sleeping beast. The air was thick with unease, as if the ship itself resented his presence. Inside, the atmosphere was even more oppressive. Flickering lights cast eerie shadows across the walls, which were covered in alien hieroglyphs and strange carvings. The ship felt alive, its hum resonating deep in Johnson's chest. He moved deeper, his flashlight cutting through the darkness, until he reached a central chamber. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it rested a suit of armor unlike anything Johnson had ever seen. It shimmered faintly, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and pulse with energy. As he approached, a voice echoed in his mind, calm, measured, and undeniably artificial. "I am Argus," it said, "the guardian of this vessel and its power. Who dares disturb the slumber of the ancients?" Johnson hesitated but stepped closer, his hand outstretched. "A soldier," he replied, his voice steady. "A soldier fighting for survival." The armor's glow intensified, and the voice spoke again, its tone both warning and welcoming. "Then prove your worth, human, for this power is both a gift and a curse." As Johnson reached for the armor, the distant howl of an approaching Empire patrol echoed through the ship. His heart raced. There was no turning back now. His fingers hovered over the armor's surface. It radiated a faint warmth, as if alive, and strange symbols glowed faintly along its edges. The voice from before, calm, artificial, yet commanding, echoed once more in his mind. "You hesitate. Is it fear or wisdom?" Britton frowned, shaking off the unease creeping up his spine. "Call it caution," he muttered. "I've seen what happens when you underestimate alien tech." "Then proceed with caution," the voice, Argus, replied. "But know this. The power you seek will demand more than you expect." With a steady breath, Britton grasped the armor's chest plate. It was lighter than it looked, yet felt impossibly sturdy. As he slid his arms into the sleeves, the suit seemed to come alive, adjusting to his movements with eerie precision. The helmet locked into place, and for a moment, he was plunged into total darkness. Then, a cascade of lights and data overwhelmed his vision, the inside of the visor displaying alien symbols and readouts he didn't understand. Argus spoke again, now sounding more present, as though the AI had fully activated. "Systems online, synchronizing neural pathways. Your physiology is primitive but compatible. Fascinating. Appreciate the vote of confidence," Britton muttered, wincing as a sharp pain shot through his temples. He stumbled but quickly caught himself. His limbs felt different, stronger, more responsive. He clenched a fist, the armor amplifying the motion with mechanical precision. "You're adapting," Argus observed. The armor enhances physical performance by a factor of 10. Neural link established. You will grow accustomed to the interface in time. Britton took a tentative step forward, his boots clanging softly against the metallic floor. The HUD displayed a map of the ship, its corridors and chambers rendered in intricate detail. It also highlighted power sources, structural weaknesses, and, alarmingly, life signs. Uninvited guests, Argus said. A patrol. They followed you here. Britton cursed under his breath. The Empire's soldiers wasted no time. He turned and moved quickly through the ship, his newfound strength making each stride effortless. The corridors felt endless, twisting and turning in ways that defied logic, but Argus guided him with precise instructions. Why did they abandon this place? Britton asked, his voice low as he jogged down a darkened hallway. The species that created this vessel faced annihilation, Argus explained. They left their greatest weapon here, hoping it would not fall into the wrong hands. Your empire fears this power, but they lack the resolve to claim it. Not my empire, Britton corrected sharply. I fight against them. An interesting distinction, Argus replied, its tone neutral. Perhaps that will matter. Britton slowed as he approached a wide chamber. The HUD warned him of multiple heat signatures beyond the next door. He pressed his back against the wall, listening as guttural alien voices barked orders on the other side. The Empire's soldiers were searching for him, their heavy boots echoing in the stillness. What can this suit do? Britton whispered. Many things. Argus replied cryptically. But you will need to learn quickly. The door slid open and Britton moved. The armor reacted instantly, amplifying his speed and strength. He closed the distance between himself and the nearest soldier in the blink of an eye, his fist connecting with the alien's chest. The impact sent the creature flying, its body slamming into a wall with a sickening crunch. The others turned, weapons raised, but Britton was already in motion. The suit's HUD highlighted their weak points, and Argus provided a steady stream of tactical advice. Focus on disarming them first. You are faster than they are. Use it. Blasts of plasma hissed past him as he weaved through the fray. The armor absorbed the few hits he couldn't avoid, its shields flaring briefly before stabilizing. Britton grabbed one soldier's weapon and twisted, the alien roaring in pain as its arm snapped. He turned the weapon on the remaining soldiers, firing with deadly precision. Within minutes, the chamber was silent again, the Empire patrol lying scattered and motionless. Britton stood among them, his chest heaving as adrenaline coursed through him. The armor system seemed to hum with approval. Impressive, Argus remarked. Your instincts serve you well. Britton didn't respond immediately. He knelt beside one of the fallen soldiers, inspecting their equipment. It was standard Empire issue, nothing special, but it reminded him of just how outmatched humanity had been during the invasion. And yet, with this armor, he had turned the tide against an elite patrol. He rose, his resolve hardening. This isn't just a weapon. It's a chance. Perhaps, Argus said. But power alone does not ensure victory. It must be wielded wisely. Save the lectures, Britton shot back. We've got work to do. Are there more like them coming? Argus hesitated, then replied, not immediately. However, this location is compromised. More will come, and they will come prepared. Then we make sure they regret it, Britton said, his voice grim. He accessed the map on his HUD again, scanning for anything that might give him an edge. One room in particular stood out, its energy readings off the charts. What's in here? He asked, pointing to the highlighted chamber. The core of the vessel, Argus answered. Its power is unmatched, but it is unstable. It has lain dormant for centuries, and its activation would be unpredictable. Unpredictable's better than doing nothing, Britton said, already moving toward the chamber. The corridors seemed to grow darker as he approached, the air heavier with an unspoken tension. When he reached the door, it slid open with a groan, revealing a massive room filled with pulsating energy conduits. In the center, A glowing sphere of light hovered, its surface rippling with arcs of electricity. Britain approached cautiously, his steps echoing in the vast chamber. The power emanating from the sphere was almost tangible, making the hair on his arms stand on end. Argus's voice broke the silence. This is the heart of the ship. Its energy could destroy fleets, or planets. But it is not without risk. Britain stared at the sphere, his mind racing. The Empire was relentless, and humanity was out of options. This ship, this power, it might be their only hope. "Can we control it?" he asked, his voice low. "Control is relative," Argus replied. "You may wield it, but at a cost." Britain exhaled slowly. He wasn't afraid of the cost, not anymore. "Then let's make sure it counts." As his hand reached out toward the sphere, the distant hum of engines signaled the approach of more Empire forces. There was no turning back now. The Empire's outpost on the edge of Saktar buzzed with activity, its sprawling facility lit by the cold, sterile glow of artificial lights. Alien guards patrolled the perimeter, their weapons ready, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble. They had been warned. Something had awoken on the Forgotten Moon, and it was unlike anything they had faced before. Inside the command center, Captain Zrak reviewed reports with a mix of skepticism and irritation. Rumors had spread quickly through the ranks. Talk of a human soldier wearing ancient armor and tearing through Empire patrols like a phantom. Zrak dismissed most of it as exaggerated nonsense. Humans were resourceful, yes, but they were no match for the might of the Empire. Still, the losses were undeniable, and the Council demanded answers. As he leaned over a holomap, the room suddenly went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the chamber in a dim red glow. A shrill alarm blared, cutting through the silence like a knife. Zrak straightened, his voice sharp and commanding. "Report. What's happening?" Before his officers could respond, the doors to the command center groaned and buckled. A deafening explosion tore them apart, sending shards of metal flying. Through the smoke, a single figure emerged, his silhouette framed by the flickering lights. The armor he wore gleamed with an otherworldly glow, its angular design both elegant and menacing. Britton Johnson stepped into the room, his gaze locked on Zrak. The air seemed to vibrate with the energy radiating from his armor, and for a brief moment, no one moved. Then Zrak barked an order, and the guards opened fire. The plasma bolts never reached their target. Britton moved faster than they could track, his enhanced reflexes turning him into a blur. The armor's shields absorbed the few shots that came close, dispersing the energy harmlessly. In seconds, he was among them, his fists and the suit's built-in weapons delivering devastating blows. Argus, the AI embedded in the armor, provided real-time analysis and guidance, its voice calm amidst the chaos. Enemy density decreasing, Argus noted. Target priority. Command staff. Britton didn't need the reminder. Zrak was backing away, his expression a mix of anger and fear. Britton vaulted over the console separating them, landing with precision and grabbing the captain by the collar. "You think we're weak?" Britton growled, his voice amplified by the suit. "You think you can crush us and walk away unscathed?" Zrak sneered, baring his serrated teeth. "You're a fool if you think one man can stand against the Empire." "Good thing I'm not just a man," Britton replied coldly. He threw Zrak aside, the alien crashing into a wall with enough force to crack the metal. With the command center neutralized, Britton turned his attention to the facility's main power core. Argus guided him through the maze of corridors, each step purposeful. The remaining guards tried to stop him, but their efforts were futile. The armor's advanced systems gave him an edge they couldn't counter, targeting drones, kinetic barriers, and weapons that adapted to his movements with seamless precision. As he reached the power core, Britton paused to assess the situation. The massive reactor pulsed with energy, its conduits snaking through the facility like veins. Destroying it would cripple the outpost, but it would also draw attention and retaliation. "Options?" Britton asked, his voice steady despite the tension in his chest. You could overload the reactor, Argus suggested. However, the resulting explosion would level this facility and everything within a 10-kilometer radius. Alternatively, you could sabotage the core's cooling systems, forcing an evacuation without catastrophic loss of life. Britain considered the choices. He had no love for the Empire, but he wasn't here to slaughter indiscriminately. The people in this outpost, soldiers or not, were following orders, just like he once had. Sabotage it, he decided. Make it messy, but not lethal. Understood, Argus replied. Initiating protocol. As the AI worked, Britain guarded the entrance, his senses heightened. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor, and he knew reinforcements were coming. He braced himself, his grip tightening on the alien weapon he had taken earlier. The first wave arrived, their movements disciplined and coordinated. Britain met them head-on, using the armor's enhanced strength to dispatch them with brutal efficiency. Plasma bolts ricocheted off his shields, and he countered with precise strikes that left no room for error. Argus's tactical updates flowed seamlessly, each one helping Britain stay one step ahead. Reinforcements neutralized, Argus reported. Cooling system sabotage complete. Core temperature rising. Britain nodded, retreating from the room as alarms blared throughout the facility. The power core's destabilization would force the Empire to abandon the outpost, but it wouldn't stop them from hunting him down. He needed to keep moving, to stay ahead of their pursuit. As he exited the facility, Britain activated the armor's cloaking system, blending seamlessly into the desolate landscape of Saktar. The barren terrain stretched before him, a stark reminder of the Empire's dominance and the cost of resistance. He paused at the crest of a hill, turning back to watch the chaos unfold. Empire dropships descended on the outpost, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. Soldiers scrambled to evacuate, their voices carried on the wind. For the first time in years, Britain felt a flicker of hope. The Empire was vast, its resources seemingly endless, but they were not invincible. They could be disrupted, weakened. Next move? Britain asked, his voice quiet. Options are limited, Argus replied. The armor's power reserves are sufficient for now, but prolonged engagement will require a recharge. The ship's core on Saktar could be used as a temporary solution, though it remains a risky proposition. Britain exhaled, his breath visible in the cold air. Risk is all I've got left. He turned and began the trek back toward the ancient ship, his mind already racing with possibilities. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting to show humanity that they still had a chance, that they could stand against the Empire and reclaim their future. Behind him, the outpost burned, its lights dimming as the power core shut down. The Empire would recover, but so would Britain. And the next time they met, he would be ready. The Galactic Empire's flagship loomed in orbit, a sprawling fortress of black metal and glowing conduits. Its shadow stretched across the surface of a distant world, a testament to the power it wielded over the galaxy. Inside its command center, Admiral Margoff stood before a massive holoscreen, his four eyes narrowing as reports flooded in from the Saktar outpost. The facility was crippled, its core sabotaged, and its forces decimated. One name kept repeating in the frantic transmissions: Britain Johnson. Margoff clenched his clawed hands behind his back, his sharp teeth grinding in frustration. A single human, equipped with ancient technology, had managed to dismantle an entire operation. It was a humiliation the Empire could not tolerate. The Admiral's voice, cold and precise, echoed through the room. Bring the fleet into position. Deploy all available hunters. This ends now. In the depths of the flagship, Britain Johnson prepared himself. He had infiltrated the massive vessel, using the stolen cloaking capabilities of his armor, evading patrols and automated defenses with a precision that felt almost instinctual. Argus had guided him every step of the way, its calm, analytical voice a steady presence in the chaos. They're mobilizing against you, Argus observed. Admiral Margoff has placed a bounty on your head. Every hunter in the fleet will be converging here. Good, Britain said quietly, his voice steady. Saves me the trouble of finding them. He moved through the labyrinthine corridors, the armor sensors scanning for threats. The flagship was a marvel of engineering, its design a blend of functional brutality and aesthetic menace. Britain felt the weight of the task ahead. This was no outpost, no isolated target. This was the heart of the Empire's military machine, and he was about to tear it apart. The first wave of resistance came quickly. Elite soldiers armed with experimental weapons poured into the corridor, their movements precise and disciplined. Britain engaged them without hesitation, the armor responding to his thoughts with fluid efficiency. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, but his shields held, and his counterattacks were devastating. He moved like a force of nature, disarming one soldier and using their weapon against the others in a single motion. Argus provided tactical updates, highlighting weak points and anticipating enemy maneuvers. Efficiency increasing, Argus noted. Your neural synchronization is improving. Britain didn't respond. His focus was absolute, his movements deliberate. He had fought battles before, but this was different. The armor amplified not just his strength and speed, but his instincts, turning him into a living weapon. Yet, beneath the calculated violence, a part of him wondered how much of himself he was losing in the process. As the last soldier fell, Britain pressed forward, his destination clear. The command center lay at the heart of the flagship, a heavily fortified chamber where Margoth waited. Britain knew the admiral would not flee. His pride wouldn't allow it. That made him predictable and vulnerable. The closer Britain got, the more desperate the resistance became. Automated turrets activated, their targeting systems locked onto him with relentless precision. He dodged and weaved, using the armor's enhanced agility to avoid the streams of plasma. Explosions rocked the corridors, the air thick with smoke and the acrid scent of scorched metal. Britain pressed on, his determination unshaken. At last, he reached the command center. The massive doors were sealed, their surface reinforced with layers of impervious alloy. Argus scanned the barrier, calculating the time and force required to breach it. Conventional methods will take too long, the AI warned. Reinforcements are closing in. Britain considered his options, his mind racing. The armor's power reserves were dwindling, and every second counted. Then he noticed the conduits running along the walls, their faint glow indicating a direct connection to the ship's power grid. A plan formed in his mind, reckless but effective. Override the conduits, Britain instructed. Redirect their energy to the armor. Risk of overload is high, Argus cautioned. Your physiology may not withstand it. Do it, Britain said firmly. We don't have time. The armor systems interface with the conduits, siphoning their energy in a blinding surge. Britain felt the heat coursing through him, his body trembling under the strain. The suit's glow intensified, its surface pulsing with raw power. He focused all of it on the doors, unleashing a devastating burst of energy that tore them apart in a blinding explosion. As the smoke cleared, Britain stepped into the command center. Margoth stood at the far end of the room, flanked by his personal guard. The admiral's expression was one of cold fury, his crystalline staff glowing with energy. He raised it, pointing directly at Britain. You've come far, human, Margoth said, his voice dripping with disdain. But this is where your defiance ends. Britain didn't respond. He charged forward, the armor propelling him with blistering speed. The guards moved to intercept, but they were no match. Britain dispatched them with ruthless efficiency, his movements a blur of calculated violence. He reached Margoth in seconds, their confrontation inevitable. The admiral fought with skill and precision, wielding his staff like a blade. Its energy crackled with lethal force, each strike aimed with deadly intent. Britain countered, the armor's AI predicting Margotha's moves and guiding his own. The room trembled with the clash of power, each blow reverberating like thunder. You think you can defeat the Empire? Margoth snarled, his attacks growing more desperate. We are eternal. You are nothing. Britain dodged a sweeping strike, his counterpunch sending the staff flying from Margatha's grasp. He grabbed the admiral by the throat, lifting him effortlessly. His voice was cold, resolute. You underestimate what nothing can do. With a final, crushing motion, Britain threw Margatha aside, the admiral collapsing against the shattered remains of his command console. The room fell silent, the battle over. Britain stood amidst the wreckage, his breath heavy, his mind racing. You've won, Argus said, its tone measured. But the fleet is still operational. The flagship remains a threat. Britain turned to the central console, his eyes narrowing. The ship's systems were at his fingertips, the armor interfacing with its controls. He could disable the fleet, cripple the Empire's operations in this sector with a single command. But another option loomed before him, an option that would end the threat entirely. The core, Britain said. If I overload it, it will destroy the fleet, Argus confirmed. But you will not survive. Britain stared at the console, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He thought of Earth, of the lives that had been lost, of the fight that still lay ahead. Sacrifice had always been part of war, but this was different. This was final. Is it worth it, he asked quietly, more to himself than to Argus. That is not for me to decide, the AI replied. But know this. Your actions will shape the future for better or worse. Britain's hand hovered over the controls. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. Then, with a steady resolve, he made his choice. The flagship trembled as its core began to destabilize, the energy building to a catastrophic crescendo. Britain turned away from the console, his gaze steady as he faced the destruction he had unleashed. He thought of the lives he was saving, the chance he was giving humanity. As the explosion consumed the flagship, a single thought echoed in his mind. It was worth it.